Welcome to the Meta One Coin Report, exploring the world of private digital currency through the eyes of human rights and empowerment of humanity. Here's your host, Leanne Carroll.
The Meta One Coin Report is about current events, things that are happening in the world, also news and up-to-date information regarding decentralized finance and cryptocurrencies. Meta One Coin is a coin for humanity. We are involved in humanitarian projects and solutions that create an economy of abundance, an organic levity for humans, a forward-up trajectory. This is a profound movement on a grand and global scale. The members of Meta One are difference makers and part of the Meta One family, holding the vision and taking actions that lead to a better life experience, not only for themselves, but for those around them as well. In today's broadcast, we have Randy Shaw. Randy is a Meta One coin holder and is very enthusiastic about Meta One. He is very knowledgeable about the movement and what Meta One and cryptocurrencies in general bring to the world. So I'd like to invite him in on the show right now. Hello, Randy. How are you?
Leanne, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Welcome to the program. And you are a Meta One coin holder, and you have been since...
Gosh, it was February 2019.
Wow. So you are what we call a founding member.
I am a founding member.
There's a lot of enthusiastic members like you and coin holders that consider themselves part of the Founders Club. And if anybody is listening that is part of the Founders Club, please comment below and say, I'm here. I'm a part of the Founders Club too. That would be really nice to see all the comments. So Randy, how did you discover Meta One?
Oh, this is... It's interesting because it's almost like a two-part is how did I discover it and how it motivated me. So it was 2018. I had a lot of life changes. I'm not going to enumerate them here, but so I heard about Meta One from a dear friend of mine who was already involved in Meta One, and it actually was a matter of, we were talking about politics and spirituality and things, and he said something that was a little different than the way I believed. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about it. So he ended up sending me various videos, but one of the videos was about Meta One because he said there's this guy in Texas, and he's very smart and he's very spiritual, and he's creating a crypto coin that's going to be asset backed, not fiat backed, not by the dollar, and it's going to be a coin that's only going to go up in value. And he said also, this guy is so smart. He says he's creating his own bank charter and he's creating his own exchange. And I thought, whoa, okay, I want to know more about this. So Randy sent me a video right after Christmas of 2018. And it was a man interviewing who interviewed Robert a lot. And I was blown away by Robert's presence, by his answers, by there was a centeredness about him that really impressed me. I was blown away by not only what he discovered, what he talked about in terms of the coin and the plan, but he also was forced by the interviewer to talk about his past. And his past history is clear back when Robert was clear back in school. He started being able to create programs for companies, go in and help them to turn around companies and make millions and millions of dollars. So in other words, Robert's been in these high finance arena for 20, 25 years. But the thing is that I started to understand this wasn't just a crypto coin. This was like what we're calling now is a movement, right? And so the first thing I did was, as I went searching on YouTube, the ultimate dictionary and encyclopedia of the now, and I started to researching cryptocurrency, and one particular video stood out amongst others. It was Antonopoulos. I can't remember his first name. He was a Greek sounding name, and he's being interviewed by Brian Rose, and this is like 4 years ago, about Bitcoin. And what I recognized through, I can't remember his first name, Antonopoulos, is that cryptocurrency was finally taking our dignity back in terms of our finances as common people, as dignified people, and taking it out of the hands of the banks and the corrupt systems and the governments who would throw you under the bus to save their behinds. And it was through the blockchain, because it's an open ledger that cannot be cheated upon. And I'm going, wow, this is already, I'm already feeling this is part of the new world. This is part of the I'm still pretty spiritual. I'm not as religious as I used to be. I left the Mormon church 30 years ago, but there were so many things that are, when Antonopoulos started talking about how cryptocurrency was going to put the power back into the hands of the people, not the organizations and institutions. I saw this aligning immediately with what people would call the coming of Christ, the millennium, the new world, the prophecies in the Christian Judeo scriptures, the astrology, the mythologists, the psychics, and I'm going, wow. So immediately right off, I'm seeing this not as just a way to make more money. It was part of the new evolution, right? So my kids accused me of being a fanatic. So I really dived into this a lot. And then I found other videos, and Randy sent me some other videos about Robert being interviewed. And every time I would watch Robert, I could feel there was such depth to him. Okay. And I'm not deifying him or anything, and I don't have a crush on him, but there was something special about this, because when he spoke, it was like it resonated with something deep inside me. He also mentioned that Meta One is going to be able to help humanity and help rise us out of debt slavery.
Yes.
Now, I'd heard this word debt slavery before, but I'd never researched it. And so I thought I'd better research it. And in researching it, finding the corruptness of the financial systems. And then, once you open a door, you can open 3 more doors. And so I opened 3 more doors, and I opened 6 more doors. And I realized, my goodness, we're walking around asleep. We are not supposed to be in debt. We're not supposed to be working our fingers to the bone. We're supposed to be having fulfilling and abundant lives. So Robert tuned into that for me. In other words, it wasn't just some dude talking about making money. He had a plan. And the biggest part of that plan was this cryptocurrency coin called Meta One. And it had a spiritual basis to it. But the important thing was to realize that it was going to be backed by a hard asset so that it doesn't devalue, but it can only go up. And I go, well, has anybody ever done that before? I don't know. I never did find out. So from watching Robert's videos, I knew that I must go see this guy in person and get a feel for his energy. So this was the first time I got to see Robert was it was a 2-day super meeting of spiritual and financial things in Sedona in February 2019. I was fortunate enough to know Wanda, got invited, Wanda Ironheart, invited to a special meeting of maybe about 12 people on the Friday before the Saturday and Sunday of the super meetings, and got to a nice tour of Robert's plan and layout, just in front of 12 people, and to have his attention. And I was blown away by how intricate his presentation was. And he was very centered through the whole thing. And there was one part that I didn't quite understand. And I thought, well, what the heck, I'll raise my hand. And so I asked him the question. He took about 4 minutes to answer that question. And it was so impressive that I was just sitting there not saying anything, and everybody's looking at me. And finally I said, I'm looking at Robert, and I said, I want you to know one thing. And everybody's waiting. I said, that was a damn good answer. Of course, everybody's laughing, right? But that was just another example of the depth of Robert's mind, right? So then I got to talk to him for 15 minutes the next day. Just a little introduction. We talked about some things about where Meta One was headed. And then on Sunday, he talked for an hour in front of the whole group. There was probably 60 of us in that room. and then he answered questions, and then I knew I want in. I really want to be part of this. So after the meeting in February, there was another meeting in Sedona, only this time in May, and by this time I'm watching Robert's interviews, and I'm watching them over and over. There were about maybe 15 of his videos over the next 2 years, and I watched them all 4 times. My son even watches them 5 or 6 times. But the point is every time I'd listen, I'd catch a new nuance of something he said that had depth that I was skipping over because I didn't understand. Right.
Right. Every paragraph is its own book.
Yes.
Very,
And
very.
in that meeting in May, as he was making his presentation, it was an amazing presentation because I believe, well, maybe I better not say what he did. I'm not sure. I don't want to be incorrect on this, but he would make major announcements in these presentations. So anyway, I was starting to listen to the next speaker who came up, but I looked out on the patio and there was Robert with guys around him, and I thought, no, I'm going out on the patio. And we talked for about a half an hour with those people, and they all kind of drifted away until, guess what? It's me and Robert. Okay, great. So I get to ask him personal questions. I get to ask him all kinds of questions. And what I found is that there was just no bullshit with the guy, that we were talking like we'd known each other for years. Right. And so that helped me a lot because I don't know, it was a new level of, it isn't just trust, it's a resonating frequency, right? So at that point, we're all waiting for Meta One to open up, and this will go into the next section, okay? At this point, Robert's basic premise was he was going to use museum grade fine art as the asset because it's the only asset they found that hadn't devalued over the last 100 years. It was always coming up around 6% a year. And the problem was that it was going to take a couple of years to really get Meta One to the point where we could really take the profits. So I thought, you know what, I can wait for this because it was such an extensive plan that he would buy fine art from museums and holders and hold the title on them. But the interesting thing is Robert doesn't do anything halfway. As he created the world's most powerful, best, advanced forensics lab to determine the authenticity of art. And so the problem with that is over time, there were a lot of frauds coming in. And you can imagine if you were a museum owner and you had a $10 million painting and you wanted, Robert to buy it so that we could put it in the Meta One asset. And by the way, he was going to allow the museums to be the stewards to still send it to the public, right? So he was not only were there fraudulent private art dealers, but I don't know if I'm making this up or if I'm trying to remember because it's been a couple of years, but I was just imagining, would you like to be a museum owner and have a $10 million painting and Robert tell you it's a fraud? And so what happened was he was dealing with the fraudulent aspect of it, the disappointment aspect of it, but also the museum started colluding against him to raise their prices. And then pretty soon Robert just goes, okay, we've had enough of this crap, and decided to turn to gold. And when he turned to gold, it kind of threw me a little bit because I was so sold on art. And then I had talked to I probably talked to 20 people about Meta One, and I would say maybe 12 of them have purchased Meta One. And so what I had to announce to them is that, yeah, we're going to let go art now. We're going to move into gold. And it was like, it really shocked everybody. So it initially shocked me, but then as I realized the way he was moving here is he was adapting. He wasn't just jumping around like a rabbit, right? And then I started studying gold, and it wasn't just the way Robert rolls in his higher financial areas is that it isn't just the spot price of gold. He's able to use the gold in bonded investment opportunities. I don't know how instruments that's going to make money left and right. Stuff that, I didn't, as a common person, I'd never heard of these instruments before. So I realized within a couple of days, and well, maybe a week until he explained it, but I'm going, this is exactly what we needed. It's just settle down. Now, whenever I've taken on a project, I've got my mind on how I want to do it. Like a perfect example is in 1999, I was still working at the post office back then, and I wanted to have my own business and get the heck out of the post office. So I created and I got involved in an internet business that was supposed to have a lot of potential. My initial idea of what that was going to be in terms of marketing and all that stuff, I had to literally let that go and go to 3 different levels until I was making, well, first year I made 28,000 in a part-time job on the internet, right? So anytime you do a new project, you've got to be open enough to say, well, you know what? I think I got that part wrong. Let's see what we can do right and make that adjustment and that adaptation so that you can manifest the vision of the core of the vision. So the first thing Robert did in his adaptations was he went from art, which turned out to be a pain in the rear end, to gold, which is something he knows a lot about. And so there were other adaptations that he made, which he caught a lot of criticism for, because in the aforementioned meeting in Sedona, when I was able to talk with him out on the patio with the other guys and then with myself, there was one guy on the patio, and he goes, he's looking at me and he goes, when do you think we're going to be able to sell our coins? And I'm thinking, wait. This isn't an in and out. This is something you want to invest in over time, because it's going to raise and rise so much in value that Robert not only has the exchange, he's got the bank where we're going to be able to take loans on our profits. And literally, as the coin rises, it's almost going to be almost like we don't even have to pay him off because of the value increases. And he wants to sell them. And I'm thinking, why would you want to sell them when it's going to go to 20,000 or 30,000 or more? And I was blown away that this guy hadn't done his homework. So I know that a lot of people don't dive in as deeply as I do. And some of the people that I've gotten involved and introduced, they don't even want to know what the secured party creditor thing is. It's too hard for them. But every time Robert would delay the opening, it would be because something like, oh, by the way, he just secured, and this is in an interview, he just secured partnerships with 2 of the 4 largest banks in the world who are crypto friendly and not part of the banking cabal. Oh, that might be a good reason to just kind of back off and reevaluate everything and get a new reset. Oh, and by the way, created a better blockchain. And if you don't know blockchain, you're going to have to study what that is, because that's the whole point of crypto. And then I'm trying to think what else. The security. Oh, well, the credit card, the debit card, state of the art, nothing like it. Activated by your thumbprint for that session. And when that session's over, your card becomes deactivated. Like the cards we have now, you can just use them, but only your thumbprint's going to be used on this. And so every time there was a delay, people would start pissing and moaning. And it's like, wait, don't you understand the scope of this thing? See, with all my study, I understood. I got graphs immediately. Well, within a month. That's pretty immediate. You can't put, and Robert said this in one of the interviews, or maybe in one of the programs. This is a whole new coin. You could have went out and just done another cryptocurrency coin, but this is a different coin. I got to slow down here. You remember in the scriptures it talks about Jesus is supposed to have said, you can't put new wine in old bottles, or leak out. And you don't want to take a nice piece of material and patch your old shirt, your thread worn shirt, and fall apart. So Meta One is what I saw was Meta One's like a Ferrari. Okay, and so one of the things that was needed is an evolution in let's just say the intelligence and spirit. Let's just say the spirit of God to move these things into a higher realm than Robert even imagined. That's number one. And then number two, if you're listening to this program, you realize that we're going through quite an evolution on this planet. spiritually, economically, politically, all kinds of stuff, right? So what I kind of asked, and Leanne, this is kind of what I asked in that last question to Robert, and until I used banksters, and then he kind of went off on the banksters, is that with the quantum financial system, the cleaning up of the governments, and so on and so forth, this feels like divine timing.
Absolutely.
That Meta One wasn't even supposed to come until these things were cleaned up. Not only so there's no interference, but there's absolutely no intrusion, no prejudice, no to operate freely.
It is the cleanup. It's not coming like after the cleanup. It is the cleanup.
It is. And so it was amazing how Robert took so much criticism for, you haven't opened yet, but he did offer anyone who wanted to get their money back or their original investment, go ahead and do that. And there was a couple of guys on Facebook once that were very appreciative of that because they had medical stuff and all. The rest of us that are fortunate enough to be able to retain our original investment.
That kind of leads us to the opportunity for humans to have abundance without the government coming in and trying to take it.
That's where I'm going to reference it again. It's an interview by Brian Rose, London Real, of a guy named I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Antonopoulos, and I believe it was an interview about 2018 or even 2015. I don't know, but the whole point was he does a great job of describing how governments and banks will use people's monies to stay afloat or to make up for mistakes and all that stuff. So they'll throw you under the bus, like your retirements. Like they're finding now in some countries like Spain and other places that the retirements they're not there. They don't have it, right? And so it's the same thing about how banks.
I think that's global, and I think that's why we have the operation going that we have now.
I agree. I agree. Yep. Totally agree. So when I found out that banks, if I deposited $1,000 with my bank can loan it out 9 or 10 times to get the interest off. No wonder there's so much profiteering. No wonder that when there's inflation, deflation, or the banks start to collapse, that people go to the banks and there's no money there. It's all out. So what we're doing now is with the blockchain and the cryptocurrency. And by the way, don't just jump into any cryptocurrency because there's a lot of goofy ones out there. There's something like 2,500 of them now. Is that cryptocurrency is if you know the term peer to peer. So if I were to buy a car from you, we could transfer it through the exchange, the money to you, and it could be settled in seconds on the new blockchains. Well, at least on the Meta exchange, it will be. We haven't even gone there yet. Rather than having to clear it through the bank and worry about the float and da. And then it's a private exchange. The bank and the financial institutions don't get to take their 1%, their 3%, their 5%, whatever it is. And so it's a straight one-to-one. And of course, what this does though is it puts the responsibility back on your shoulders to manage your money and to make sure that you're buying the right thing with the right people. That's another one of the offerings. And we've only probably even touched on half the offerings of Meta One, but he's actually got a escrow service in Meta One transactions, and right. So the cool thing is that, well, the hard thing might be for some people is to take absolute control of your money rather than handing it over to a bank. But that gives you, number one, a greater profit margin in terms of not working with the bank. Plus, it doesn't let them control your money. So this whole cryptocurrency thing to me is a revolution and an evolution of the dignity of human beings to be able to interact with dignity instead of being the debt slave or the straw man. We won't go on that today, but. And if you don't know what straw man is, look on the internet, look on YouTube. So you can tell my enthusiasm for this whole thing. There isn't anything about it that doesn't other than I wish last year I wished I'd be a multimillionaire by now, but it's all about divine timing. And so I know that I heard a story once, a guy that deposited, I think it was 50 grand in a bank, and he couldn't prove where he got it other than it was a profit. He took his profits from the cryptocurrency, and by law, they just confiscated the money from him. Okay. Well, that's not going to happen in the new world. That baloney, that malarkey, our business is going to be our business, and it won't be able to be judged by people who don't have our best interests in mind. It will be for us.
That's true. With an exchange, you own your own money. You have real money in the real economy. You own your wallet. You own your coins. No one can come in and take it from you. Just like whenever you sign the line in a bank account, you're really signing your authorization for them. It's not really yours, it's theirs. And
that's the strange thing, isn't it? When I found that out, I go, that makes sense. That actually, when you deposit, let's say $100,000 in the bank, they actually take control of it. And I thought it was my money. No, well, I've got a mortgage that said this is my house. No, really, the bank owns it. So the new world it's going to be some adaptations, and this is where I think that I'm so excited about Meta One is that Robert is pretty spiritually, and you can talk about that with maybe him someday. He's spiritually based, and his adaptability. When I started reading about Darwin in this, I was taught in school that it was Darwin's premise was survival of the fittest, right? The strongest, I said, man, you can start reading there. No, it's survival of the adaptable. It's not the strongest. Okay. So I'm watching it, Robert's willingness to work and to evolve and to question and to move and to adapt to something superior quicker than I have with most people I've ever met, right?
It's astounding.
That adaptability is going to be, matter of fact, in the new world right now, there are going to be so many things that change. One of my biggest worries about the new world is how difficult it will be for many people to adapt financially, spiritually. It's going to be a bit of a shock, and that's an understatement. It's going to be a shock to people to find out the truth about governments, people, what's been going on, the evil that's been happening right under our nose. It's going to shock the hell out of people. That's kind of the adjustment I hope that that people can make. Some of the things that they thought were true. It's back in 1991. I had the rug pulled out from under me, and I don't want to go into too much, but I literally, things that I was idolizing were, God just says, he's kind of like threw me on the floor and said, "Don't get up until you know what the hell's going on." It was terrifying. How people say, "I want to be enlightened. I want to be enlightened." Whew. Enlightenment can be terrifying because you have to be adaptable to the new information. You have to be willing to consider it before you can even adapt to it. And the problem is if you don't adapt to it, then you circle back into the same hamster cage and don't live the life that your potential is there for you. So,
and it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of self-awareness.
Yes. And I think that's one of the reasons why I had this pull to study as much as I could about Meta One, about cryptocurrency, and Robert. And then also the people in the Meta One organization. What I'm feeling, and this is my tribe. This is what I want more of in my life, is this level. It's a higher level than I've been living. And this is why I went into hypnotherapy, was because first of all, I wanted something that would help me heal and change. And it took me 20 years to find it. But then I dove into the point where I could help other people, right? But I had to help myself first. I had to get on solid ground, right? And then as much as it's been my income, it's also been a calling. I once had a psychic tell me, she said, "Randy, you cannot not do what you do." And I said, "You're right. I was born for this," right? So yeah, I do love to share. I think I got that from my dad. My dad had a really rough life. His dad died when he was 6, and bringing me up, he liked to share a lot. He wanted me to succeed, And if you talk to my kids, I'm sure they'd say I shared too much. But there's just there's something wonderful about helping another person elevate their life. You know?
Very
And
good.
I really do feel that it's funny how I would say probably 8 to 10 people that I talked to about Meta One, they couldn't vibrate with it. They couldn't grasp it. And I thought, that's okay. That's where they're at. Okay. And they're in God's hands, whatever their divine plan is, right? But for the people, close to me, particularly my son and my daughter, it's going to change our lives immensely. So,
Why don't you talk about that a little bit? How you see it changing your life and your family's life?
so my son's worked a very difficult job for the last 10 years, and he's smarter than that job. It pays well, but it's rough on him. I worked at the post office for 26 years, and I can say with real ease, I was smarter than the job. Matter of fact, the job I had at the post office, various jobs were more mail processing, so I didn't have to go deliver things. I didn't have to sell stamps at the front desk. I could listen to, and this is one of the blessings I had in my life, was working at the post office afforded me two blessings. Number one, I discovered through a friend books on tape, and then books on CD. And my most conservative estimate is from the time I discovered in '89 until I left in 2007, is I listened to over 1,200 books. So they paid me to get an education. Second thing the post office afforded me is to meet people from all walks of life, all cultures, utterly amazing. The thing, though, if I could just talk about this for a minute, even in the hypnotherapy and the healing that I wanted to do later in life, I didn't realize some of the books that I was listening to at the post office were giving me the foundation for that. And it was, I had no idea. You can't plan this stuff, right? So as I'm looking at my son and my daughter, they don't have jobs that really fulfill them, and they're so intelligent. My daughter's an artist; she's a lot of stuff. My son's really good with people. He's really good. I know that if he was free from that job, he could do something greater with his life. Okay, so I see. This is almost it's tapping into Nasara. If people, it's tapping into that where we're going to get the burden of being debt slaves off our back so we can stand up and say, I am free. I am here. What do I want to do now? Well, I've always wanted to try this. Let's try that. Or some people say, I know exactly what I want to do. I'm going to do it now. We don't have the freedom. And it's a fact of life that we live in a world and in a culture where we need money to survive, right? Well, that's all changing, evolving. Meta One is going to help. For instance, my friend Randy Holt, whom you said he's a colleague of mine. We're both hypnotherapists. We do a little different kind of work, but our main goal is to help people heal and change. And we both had in our hearts to create healing centers. Okay. And we're getting close to that. I'm not sure we will partner. We may partner. And then there's just so many applications in terms of healing. Matter of fact, when I met Robert for the first time privately back in February 2019, what we talked about was homelessness, because my daughter had been homeless for a year. Long story there. And then she got hit by a car, 50 miles an hour. And she's still paying for the brain damage and other things today. And I was focusing with Robert. He's very adamant about how society has thrown the homeless people under the bus, and that there needs to be healing centers for homeless people. And I thought, okay, great, we resonate. With the very first time I talked to him, we're resonating on something, right? With me right now, my daughter that I talked about, who was homeless and got hit by the car, and we talk about that some other day, because there's a lot of healing and there's a lot of heartache and pain and tragedy in that as well. Is that I can't wait until I can help her get an elevated level of care, get her a better apartment. There's all kinds of things I can do for her. because she's 38 years old and she can't even manage her own money. I'm her, what you might call a guardian, from the money. So right now, my goals aren't so grandiose as, to heal the world. Right now, it's just to help my daughter.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And sometimes it is just that. It's helping yourself so that you can help others. It's a beautiful calling. Thank you very much for sharing your story, your personal experience, and your vision.
It's my pleasure.
Your personal journey is fantastic, and I love it.
Thank you very much for asking me. I was looking forward to this, just to be able to share. I didn't say half as what I wanted to say, but I know that what we said today was right.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining this podcast. We always appreciate a comment. We always appreciate when you share. If you're interested in what MetaOne has to offer, and if you're interested in finding out more about what MetaOne is and what it represents, please look for our website at metaone.io. If you're interested in finding out more about the secured party creditor process, please find more information about that at Universal Law. That is number 8, Universal Law, number 8.io. Thank you for joining us. And as always, live freely and live abundantly.